Hello, my name is Al Zaytoun, and I'm also a PMI fellow. I wanted to share a couple of reflections on the loss of a very instrumental colleague in the profession, Paul Dinsmore. When I reflect on interactions with someone like Paul, with the magnitude of giving and the style, the attributes, the tremendous, almost infectious way of inspiring us, not only about the profession, but also the impact that project management could create in the way we do things, in the way we work. Paul has been fundamentally the kind of a change instrument that the world needs. Great thought leadership, great interactions, great connecting and sensing to where our needs are, where we're heading. Thank you for the contribution. Thank you for the thought leadership and the tremendous inspirational impact you're going to have on generations to come. That basically has fundamentally changed the way we look at project and program and portfolio management. Paul, you will be missed tremendously, and again, I can't appreciate enough the multitude of impacts you've created on our profession.
Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here today, all our PMO Global Awards Conference attendees. Today, I have the honor to host this talk show with a true project management legend. He has been recognized as a PMI Fellow in 2009. He's a world-renowned consultant and one of the founders of the PMP credential, with over 50 years of professional experience and many stories to tell us. This special session will let us know more about our profession's history and learn from the amazing experience of this distinguished professional who has been actively contributing to the project management evolution over several decades. So, Lambert, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Américo. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really honored to be asked to even participate in this program. It has such a great reputation. And then for me to get a chance to weave my stories, always look forward to that opportunity. And I've just come off of what we call a world tour of webinars, where I addressed about 60 different chapters worldwide, about 12,000 people. So it's been a real honor. So it's been something that kind of jarred me when our good friend Paul Dinsmore passed away last week. It just kind of shook me to the core to think that I've known Paul for so long, and now he's gone, and now I'm starting to think, gosh, who knows who's going to be next? So I really want to pass on anything I've got in the way of interest for people who've pursued this as a career. I didn't start out believe it or not, as a project manager. I started out as an engineering designer, and quickly found that doing work was not my thing. I found that I could motivate and stimulate other people and get twice as much work done and use it all mental as opposed to physical work capability. So I've sort of embraced that concept. And I tell people, if you don't like work, then get into project management, because you don't have to do physical work, you do mental work.
Yeah,
and it's paid big dividends. I started my career in 1966, and it's just been constant growth since then in terms of project management and where the business has gone, where the tools and techniques have gone. Getting a chance to participate in the development of the PMP opened up a whole new avenue of how you can have an impact on the profession. So it's been quite a ride.
Yeah. Did you start as a project manager in engineering area?
No, I started in my first opportunity was in 66 in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. And I went to work for a company called Chicago Bridge and Iron. And I was a designer on the board, drafting essentially is what it amounted to, and designing double wall storage tanks. It doesn't get any more exciting than that. And quickly decided to move on and had a chance because of what they call the Utah work ethic. there was a California firm that hired a lot of people out of Utah because they felt they had good work ethic. So I went to Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, a national laboratory run by the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, and worked on downhole testing apparatus for nuclear interaction with nuclear weapons. And so got some really sophisticated work to do there. Got a chance to do some site work where I went to the Las Vegas test site and helped install some of the equipment that I had designed. And so I got a hands-on. I got a chance to really see the result of what you do. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, I feel sorry for some project people. They never really see the finished product. And so this gave me a chance to really see what was working and what wasn't. And I also found out that experience is important. I would design a piece of downhole equipment, we'd install it, and as we installed it, the people out in the field started changing it. I said, what are you doing? That's not what I designed. He said, no, we're going to make it work. He said, what you designed isn't going to work. So I learned that you listen to those field people. You listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And how was your transition from project manager to consultant? Because sometimes, you focus on consultants and training. How did you,
well, I had a chance. GE was really what primed the pump from that standpoint, because in 1973, the General Electric was doing a fast breeder reactor project, and they were required by the Department of Energy to apply earned value concepts. And I was still on the board at the time doing engineering, designing, and project management from an individual standpoint. And they said, we need volunteers to teach the rest of the engineers. We got about 300 engineers in this particular shop, and we need volunteers to teach people how to do project management. And I thought, well, heck, this is a great opportunity. So that's how I got involved, is I volunteered to become a teacher. And what I found was that was really my calling. I really found that having a chance to share knowledge and help people become better at what they do was really what stimulated me.
Yeah, very nice. And Lee, how do you see the evolution of project management from that time to the present day? So what do you think that is really different?
I get that question all the time because I'm so darn old. But as I really think about it, if I really stop and think, I don't believe the concepts of, I don't believe project management has changed that much. I think what's changed are the tools that support the process, the capability to generate decision support information more quickly and more accurately. But if you look back at project management, I mean, even back in the 60s, we were using work breakdown structures and integrated schedules. And I mean, the actual profession hasn't changed that much, but my goodness, have the concepts and the tools and techniques changed. I mean, just look at this agile wave. I mean, it's just taken the world by storm. And so people would say, well, yeah, project management's changed. Well, that's not project management. That's a methodology. That's a concept that we use to manage projects. It's not, project management hasn't changed that much in my view.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me say this. I think the bright spot for our profession right now is Sunil Prashera. Sunil has adopted this concept of the project economy, and he is just pressing that. And if you start to think about what he says and what we write about, he's right. Everything's a project. And therefore, everyone's a project manager. Now, you probably remember this, but Paul Dinsmore wrote a book in 1981 called Managing Organizations by Project.
Okay? Yeah, I had it in my library.
Oh, yeah. Anybody smart's got it. And I'll tell you what, Paul was way ahead of his time, because if you read that book and then you listen to what Sunil is saying, Paul nailed it in 1981. And so we're getting back to the idea that, project management can be used on pretty much any concept where you have a deliverable. So I don't think it's going to change that much. I think the things that's changing now are the specifics of the process. I mean, we're getting into a lower level of granulation. in what we do with project management. Conceptually, though, it stayed pretty much the same, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see that the techniques, they are very similar, but with more technology support and so on. But what about people? Do you believe that project managers today, they are better prepared than, a few
Yeah,
years ago?
I do. And one of the reasons, in addition to they get a better understanding of project management, the concepts. But the real reason, I think, is that we in the profession have started to realize it's about people. And if we don't prepare people and we don't educate people, all they've got is a bunch of tools and techniques. And so the strength of the people in the process, and that's where I spend most of my time, is trying to convince people, there are ways you can do this much more effectively and much more productively if you just take the time to absorb that kind of information.
Yeah, so maybe the next generation of project managers, they will be much more focused on people challenges than technical challenges. Can we see that? Can we say that? I think.
I hope that's true. That the thing I always worry about is selfish project managers who are in it pretty much for their success. They're in it for whatever recognition they can get. Well, that's so counter to the team process that project management lives on, that we really have to make sure people understand it's not about you, it's about us, and it's about getting things done.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So let me ask you a question now about PMI and the PMP certification. Actually, I'd like to know how was your first contact with PMI and your participation in creating the PMP certification?
Sure. When I went to Pacific Northwest Laboratory up in the state of Washington, my job was to implement a PMO up there. And I came across PMI, and I thought, gosh, I ought to join this organization. It's all about project management. So I joined in 1978. Now, I didn't really do anything with it. It was pretty much optics. But then in 81, when I came to Columbus, Ohio to start a new division here, they had a chapter. Columbus, Ohio is the third chartered chapter in PMI. Only Houston and San Francisco were chartered before Columbus, Ohio. And so I came to Columbus, Ohio, and I found out that the chapter was on suspension. They only had 3 members. And so I told my CEO of this new project management division, might make sense if we get involved and revitalize these chapters. And so he said, he gave me the green light. He said, whatever you want to do. So within about 3 months, we had 185 members. Now, I mean, we joke about 160 of them worked for me, but that's a different thing, see? So we revitalized the chapter. Now the chapter has about 1,800 members, and they're doing real well. But as a result of that, I got a letter from PMI saying, we'd like you to join this group that's creating a project management certification process. We'd like you to represent R&D and engineering as on the committee, and would you be willing to do that? Well, I sold it to my boss, and he funded it, and so that's where it all started. So in 81, it was about August, I suppose, in 81, we all started meeting in Western Carolina, developing this program. And it took, 84, October of 84 is when we finally rolled it out. So it took almost 3 years to get it put in place. And it was a schlock operation, I'll be honest with you. Everything was paper and, 8 different sections of knowledge. And so, it wasn't sophisticated like it is now, but we had 50 some people that take the first exam. 43 of them passed. So we got off to a pretty good start. Yeah, we got off to a pretty good start, but it was very slow in the beginning. We just didn't publicize it well, and until Davidson Frame stepped in and took it over and started to run it like a business, then things changed. Then things changed a lot. He had a dramatic impact, and unfortunately, the guy who started it, Dean Martin up at Western Carolina, had a heart attack before we actually rolled it out. He unfortunately passed away. And so eventually Davidson took it over, and he ran it for 6 or 8 years, I think. And the thing he did that changed the world for us in PMI was that he removed the requirement that you be a PMI member to become certified. See, back in the beginning, you had to join the club, then we'd let you get certified. And he said, well, wait, we're looking at a tremendous opportunity here. So he lifted that requirement, and man, the rest is history. I mean, we're at 1.2 million now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a big number. It's a big number.
Probably nobody at that time could imagine that it would become something so, big and.
I mean, if I'd have thought of that, I'd have got a cut, man. I'd have negotiated a piece of it. Yeah, no, it was all volunteer, and it still pretty much basically is, except the headquarters people. It's slowed down domestically, but India and eventually China, once we get over all our problems, South Korea, it's growing internationally big time.
Yeah.
So and people say, well, I see it slowing down. Yet, well, we aren't saturated, but we've certainly gathered in a lot of people in the U.S. So it's naturally going to slow down a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting because you were saying about your first contact with PMI, and PMI came to Brazil, the first initiatives in the 90s. And I was a project manager at that time. Actually, I've been working at Deloitte as a project manager, but I've never heard about PMI at the time. It was something totally new for me. And the first time that I saw some material about PMI was in the office of someone that I have a very good friend, and she called me to help her during the weekend because she needed to print some material for a training. And I said, okay, I'm free. I'm gonna help you. And I went to that place. It was an office in downtown here in Brazil, in Rio. And I was there in front of the printer, and I saw the first page, PMI, PMBOK, and I said, wow, it's quite interesting. And a few months later, I figured out actually that office belonged to Paul Dinsmore. So actually, my first step in with PMI and project management was because of him. It was because of that Saturday. It's crazy, right? Probably if I decided to spend my Saturday in the beach, I don't know if you will be here today.
See, if you'd have told her no, you probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. It's really interesting how sometimes life connect people, right? Even when we don't realize that. Let me ask you something, Lee. I'd like to know, how do you see the importance of a certification like PMP for people nowadays, right? Because we have many certifications, many possibilities. So why should someone obtain the certification like PMP? Why it's still valuable for someone? What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I have pretty strong feelings about that. I've stated this for a long time. I think that the certification itself confirms a level of knowledge that people want to feel confident you have. Okay, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't perform projects for you. In other words, once you step through that portal that says you're certified, the expectation level goes up significantly. Because hey, come on, you're a certified project manager. Why are you making these kind of mistakes? And so I'm trying to get very cautious about the people that actually become certified. I do believe that the work PMI is doing now to strengthen the exam, to make the exam really represent that level of professionalism, I think we've come a long ways. I mean, really a long ways. I had someone that worked for me that I told her I thought she'd be good if she was a PMP because she worked for me. And she said, but I don't know anything about project management. I said, it's not that big a deal. And PMI said, that's not true. You can't just sit down and take that. Well, she did, and she passed. So I made my point. And so I think in the ensuing years, I think that we've seen, for obviously financial reasons, I mean, it generates a massive amount of money that allows them to do so many other things for the profession. But I think that it needs to be rigorous. It needs to be something when you walk out of that testing booth, you're going, damn, I'm glad that's over. Because it really needs to check your knowledge level. But the problem is, you see, to me, it's almost like an apprenticeship. It gets you through the door, and then it's all up to you. That's kind of the way I've always felt. If I can get through the darn door, then it's up to me how I perform. I've got a daughter that's a lawyer, and she was so excited to get her law degree. I said, all that's going to do is get you in the door. You're still going to have to learn how to practice law. And so I feel strongly about that. I think we've made the test more reasonable. We've moved it away from just being PMBOK based. It's going to be based now on the profession. In the old days, it's just you just had to study the PMBOK. A lot of the prep people, that's what they did. They just taught you the PMBOK. That's not going to get you by anymore. That's not going to do it. So I think it's important. It's being recognized. You see, employers here in the States especially really began to realize that the IBMs and the AT&Ts and the Sprints and all those Motorola's, they all realized, hey, this is a great way to see where our project managers are. And so they endorsed it. They bought it. I mean, I sold a Sprint contract, and I was at Sprint in Kansas City for 20-some weeks a year teaching this stuff, you see. Well, that's great, except when they're all done, did your projects get any better? Did they get them done faster and cheaper? And if the answer is no, then you might have wasted a lot of money. And so I think that's what's happening. Well, the same thing's happening now in the international market. I see people on the web selling answers. That's how important it is over there. They're stealing them and selling them. And so that you can get the PMP. You won't know darn thing about project management, but you'll get the PMP. So I think PMI is doing the right thing. They're policing that. They're paying a close attention to the quality of the exam. They're doing more audits than they've ever done, because you used to be able, you could say anything you want on the application, didn't matter. But they're doing more audits to try to make sure they're the right people taking the exam. So, I mean, I'm 54 years old, but I'm excited. I'm excited about the future for this profession. I think we've just scratched the surface, to tell you the truth.
Yes. I believe, actually, I founded a consulting company in Latin America years ago, and we hired a lot of people. And usually we try to hire people certified, PMP certified.
Sure.
One thing that I felt during that time is PMP is a very important certification, but there is something that could help companies that are trying to find professionals to be hired. Is because PMP, many different people, so different people can be PMP, right? So we are talking about project managers, but one is a project management in oil and gas. The other one is a IT project manager. So we are talking about two different professionals. And so I believe on the idea that maybe, I don't know, but if the future could be like that, I would like it. If we could create maybe additional certifications or micro certifications that could identify not only that you are a project manager that know the PMBOK and maybe other source of knowledge, but also that could identify your experience, your specific type of experience, you know? So I know that you are a PMP at oil and gas industry, or you are a PMP on software development, or you are a PMP. So this kind of thing, I believe that would be something very useful for companies. and of course for the credential holders, because it will be much easier for them to show their competencies and their experience to the companies, so the match between the demand and the competences available would be much more easier, I believe. So that's something that I would like to find in a few years, right?
I think we're taking the first step because we have broken it down into scheduling and risk and agile, and so we've got, but that's still general. That's still general. So if you're looking for an oil and gas person and you say, well, wait, you got a PMP, what do you know about oil and gas? You go, well, I don't know anything about oil and gas. Then you got a problem. When we were doing IBM, I worked with George Washington University at IBM when Gerstner came in '93. They made it clear that they wanted all their people to get PMPs. I trained thousands of IBM people to get their PMPs, but then Gerstner said immediately following that, then we want to have an internal IBM certification in specific technology areas. So they built on the PMP. So if PMI had some way to do that, that would be very well received, I think, by the profession, because otherwise you're going to have to develop it. They're going to have to spend money on it. So if PMI could lock that all together, well, I agree with you. Every once in a while, because just for the heck of it, I'll apply for a job, but all the jobs are IT. Wherever I apply, it just seems like they're all IT. I don't know jack about IT, okay? I'm a hell of a project manager, but I don't know anything about IT. And fortunately, every one of them catch it. Every one of them will say, well, what's your IT experience? I said, well, I don't have any. They said, why are you applying for this job then? Just checking to see if you're following up, because I think that's important. Generalists are okay. Generalists are fine in certain situations, but specialists, that's what organizations look for.
Yeah, it's true. I've been watching, the evolution of the Latin America market, companies, and it's very interesting because I see clearly that maybe 10, 15 years ago, the companies, they were satisfied when they find project management experts. But today, it's not enough anymore, because people now, they have enough maturity to understand that project management is something very broad. So it's impossible to find someone that really know everything. So we need some kind of specialization, we need something more vertical, and that's what is happening clearly in many countries. In Brazil, for example, companies, they are much more concerned about finding professionals with specific expertise, instead of put a bet on a very general, how I could say that, a very general professional, that know everything, but actually almost nothing in deep. That's the point, I think. Right? It's
they know a little about everything, but not a lot about some things.
Yeah. I had a director many years ago that said, being a generalist is something very fun, but the problem is nobody buy it, right? You have to be an expert in something. So it's true. Very good. And Lee,
organizations still do that, but they train them internally. Then they take on the responsibility of training them and refining them. If you could replace that and do it externally, so that when they hired an oil and gas guy, that's what they do. That's all they do. And if you try to put them in a swimming pool development, they won't know how to do it. But that's what somebody needs to do. And if we don't do it, if PMI doesn't do it, then the organizations have to do it, because generalists will not be successful.
Yes, I agree. We talked about the question of the technology evolution and the impact on project management. We know that now we are living, strange times with the COVID pandemic, and this kind of thing is accelerating and forcing changes in many organizations and in our lives, actually. So how do you see the future of project management in the next, 10 years, considering all these things that are happening today. So it's something that will become maybe automatic. We don't need project managers anymore because technology will make the work, will do the work, or actually there will be space for project managers because the needs will change. How do you feel that?
I think there'll always be. To admit that the pandemic has really shaken the apple cart. It's been amazing to watch what happens, and what it's done is, to me at least, has validated the fact that information systems are the future. Because it's really proven to me I don't have to be in an office all day. In order to make decisions based on the project information, I can be sitting in my office at home. And so I think there's going to be a tremendous reduction of physical facilities after this pandemic's over. Because I think somebody did a study that says it costs them about $28,000 a year to maintain an office for Américo. Well, you got to start asking yourself, well, is that worth $28,000 a year when he could sit at home and do it for free and work harder and longer hours than he ever did at the office? So I think that change is going to be good. Well, it won't ever eliminate the need for project management. I think it empowers a project management person to be much more effective in their decision making, but I don't think you'll ever replace them. I really don't.
Yes. Yeah, and I think the connection of projects and strategy is something that will become stronger. Every year, people and organizations, they realize how important it is, because we say that all the time, but if we really watch the companies, what they are doing, we will see a big gap that should be worked as soon as possible.
Sure, and I think one of the things that Sunil and some of the folks around him have done is start to emphasize the strategic linkage, because my opinion is we don't just do projects for the hell of it. We do projects because it's supporting something in the organization that needs to be done. Yeah. If that linkage isn't there, you're just doing projects for the heck of it. And so with the information systems capability, once we can identify that strategic linkage, then we can manage that. And we can give a heads up to decision makers when we're starting to steer away from that strategy.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Let me ask you one question. What professional advice would you give to the young Lee Lambert from 40 years ago?
Be aggressive. Look for opportunities. I was realistic. I looked for problems that nobody was solving and then solved them. And once you begin to do that, once your reputation begins to build, then you're busier than you probably wanted to be. But I think being a passive project manager, I don't think you're going to go that far. I mean, you'll do a good job, don't get me wrong, but if you got aspirations of more and better and different, if you aren't aggressive and assertive in the way you do that, you'll just be another good, solid performer. And I don't think it's not necessarily education. I mean, my education didn't link that much to project management. It's on the job education, and that includes the people side, because that's where I learned the people side. I used to run a lot of volunteer organizations, and what I found was that volunteers are there because they want to be, not because they have to be. So I started to treat my employees like they were volunteers, and all of a sudden, production went up, relationships went up, and it really strengthened the case of people.
Yes, I agree. Very, very, very interesting. And let me ask you an interesting question. We know that project management is something important. It's a competence, a very important competence. It's something that needs a high level of professionalism. But what's your opinion about project management in terms of how this competence should be spread, in other professions? So what I'm saying is, do we need project managers, or what we really need is to make every professional a project manager, so that's a very interesting question, because we could say, I don't know, a physician, it's not supposed to be a project manager, but project management competence would be something very important for this kind of professional. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's
Yep.
easy to find project managers in IT, in engineering, but there are many people in other professionals that they are project managers even when they don't know that.
Sure.
What do you know? What do you see?
I can't speak to the doctor side, but I can speak to the lawyer side. My daughter's a lawyer. She's about 50 now, so she's been in the business a while. And she used to watch what I do and say, why is that all about? And I try to explain it to her. I said, no, I can't. I don't want to deal with that. Then she started to get multiple cases. Then she started to see that the redundancies in what she had to do were overlapping, and she had to prepare for questions in a courtroom, and she hadn't done. And so pretty soon now she's actually using project, and lawyers all over are now starting to using project management as a methodology for managing caseloads and for preparing for questioning. Basically doing decision tree analysis. If I ask this question, they answer it this way, I'm going that way. If they answer it this way, I'm going that way. And so she's been a case for me, and we've won over her particular law firm. And I'm starting to get calls from other lawyers that know of the process they're using, and it's really nothing more than a piece. It's not the totality of project management. It's that piece that adds value to what she does as an attorney. Well, I can see that same thing for a doctor, for a physician. I can see the same kinds of thinking, the same kinds of needs in terms of their scheduling their time and making sure they avoid overlaps and identifying risk. I mean, when you think about it, well, as I said, everything's a project. And so people that have that capability, now that, I mean, you can't tell an MD, if you're lucky, we'll call you a project manager. I'm pretty sure that won't go. But the fact of the matter is, they'll use the skills and they'll thank you in the morning.
Yeah, I agree. And there is something important about that, because when should they learn about that? Because I've been seeing some very interesting initiatives with very young people, like kids, and we are trying to teach them some basic concepts that, of course, we are talking about projects. It's not a official schedule and budget, but there are many concepts that maybe we could teach to children, right? And it's a way to make them understand the basics, and so when they are adults, it will be very, very, very important for them, right?
Yeah, I'm very proud of PMI and their efforts to get into the elementary and middle schools and expose people to this kind of thing. A classic case of that is my son. He's I don't know, he's maybe 45 now. He doesn't know how to balance a checkbook. I mean, that's the basic kinds of stuff that we need to cover in the early ages. So when they get to be adults and out in the real world, they don't have to learn it the hard way. And now you'll see in almost all the MBA programs, another daughter, you're starting to ask yourself, how many damn kids he got? Another daughter who took her MBA, they had 2 project management oriented courses as part of the MBA curriculum. That's the way it ought to be.
Yeah,
that's the way it ought to be.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And Lee, actually, it's our last question, because our time, we could stay here, just talking all day long. but I have to make our last question. And my question is, what do you think that makes an outstanding project manager?
Wow, that's a good question. Mental awareness, understand your surroundings and the people in it, clarity of objective definition. Do you really understand what it is you're trying to accomplish? And then a sort of a religious focus on statusing against a plan, having a plan and then statusing against that plan. I think those elements really separate the real successful PMs from the just average, if you will.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, fully agree. Lee, it was excellent. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, an honor to be with you here today. So I hope you have appreciated this time. And thank you again. Thank you for all your contribution. Congrats for that. And I hope we can meet again soon. Maybe in the next PMI Global Conference. I don't know where, but in 2021, I will be there for sure.
Look forward to it. I'll see you there, Américo. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.